This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Science of Magic, a program combining the science and magic of today's leading topics to co-create new solutions and promote evolutionary thinking. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring feminine magic. Magic, the ability to interface with and manage matter at the quantum level, where all things dance before manifestation. Though most of us use it unconsciously, magic and the resulting ability to manifest is our birthright. As in all things, magic has a masculine and feminine expression. One of the most misunderstood things about feminine magic is that it's not just for women. Each of us requires a male-female balance to be whole, sovereign individuals. In order to be effective, our magical expression requires this masculine-feminine balance as well. From corrupt churches and dogmatic belief systems to self-serving governments and mercenary corporations, exploitive systems have been around for millennia. They all have one thing in common. In and of themselves, they have no power. They must rely upon the ability to control the masses in order to tap into the magical human ability to manifest. Sovereign individuals are not easily controlled. Only the imbalanced and polarized lend themselves to easy manipulation. This influence has been accomplished by judging against and controlling one half of the magical balance. To that end, the feminine has been regarded as weak and inferior. Feminine magic has been labeled witchcraft and condemned for ages. An important point: men didn't do this. They suffer from the imbalance as much as women. Corrupt systems invested in control and manipulation perpetrate the illusion of polarization to the great detriment of both genders. So what is witchcraft? What is the difference between masculine and feminine magic? Do we really need both to manifest? If so, how can we reclaim our birthright? Our guest this hour has explored the subject in depth and may have some interesting thoughts on the topic. With us is Danielle Dulsky, author of Woman Most Wild. She's an artist, yoga teacher, energy worker, and founder of Living Mandala Yoga Teacher Training. Danielle leads women's circles, witchcraft workshops, and energy healing trainings. Her website, DanielleDulsky.com. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Thank you, Gwilda. Very happy to be here.
Hey, let's just start out by you give us a definition of witchcraft. Or let's start with witch. That'll work.
Witch. Okay. Well, a witch is anyone who practices witchcraft. So it kind of works to define them both at the same time. A witch is anyone that really feels a strong kinship with nature and works his or her magic in order to support global healing. So I love what you said about balancing the masculine and feminine energy in magic, because that's really what it's all about.
So this is a more modern definition, yes? Because global healing has just become a subject recently.
I think that the idea of the earth being feminine is kind of ancient. So, so this idea that the feminine needs to be healed and that in that the earth needs to be healed is relatively new. But this idea of kind of healing the mother wound and supporting the feminine energy in all things, that's old.
Ancient even, huh? So by that definition, shaman are witches. It goes on and on, doesn't it?
Yes, I think that it's part of this new wave of witchcraft, this kind of wild woman witchcraft that's sort of taking over, this rise of the wild woman, is the acknowledgement that it's hard to define witch, because a witch is whatever the practitioner of witchcraft says that she is. So a witch is a name that's claimed rather than given by any high priest or priestess.
Very interesting. We're going to pick up with this on the other side of a break and get into what's witch and what's witchcraft at a little deeper level. It's time for a commercial break. Danielle and I will return shortly, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Our current episodes are aired daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. In service to our listeners, our prior innovative episodes can always be accessed free of charge on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. The Science of Magic is produced by rel-mar McConnell Media Company, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Danielle Dulsky, author of Woman Most Wild. Her website, DanielleDulsky.com. Danielle, we were talking about the definition of witch and witchcraft, and you kind of gave us a more modern definition. Where did witch originate?
Yeah, that's a difficult answer too. I mean, that's kind of the great debate in witchcraft is witchcraft a leftover from pre-Christian Europe, and if it is, how much of it is a leftover from pre-Christian Europe, and then how much has been reinvented in the 20th century. And I think that any witch will kind of give you a different answer to that question. I believe that there are these in the bones and in the blood, the kind of collective unconscious themes in witchcraft that witches just seem to know kind of without studying. So there is this very magical sense that part of the practice at least is ancient, and a lot of the theory and the metaphysics is relatively new.
We know in shamanism and in a lot of magical practices, traditionally there was a lot of training that went in so that a person could accurately and responsibly wield the ability. It sounds to me like you're saying that, you're just born that way and you don't have to be taught. Is that true?
No, I think that there's a part of it that requires this autonomous claiming of witch as an identity. And so that part is very personal, and this idea of self-initiation is important. But then after that, of course, you do kind of pursue knowledge and seek out spiritual mentorship. But I do believe that initial sense of, I think I'm a witch, now what do I do with it? That's a very personal kind of coming out that does precede any ability to really seek out the kind of spiritual mentorship that you want. And so a lot of the unfortunate exploitation and spiritual oppression that goes on, spiritual predatory behavior that goes on in the pagan community, I believe is because the newer practitioners haven't really claimed that identity of witch for themselves before they seek out a teacher.
Okay, so would you explain that to me? If we're going to be personal, let's get personal. How did you come to view yourself as a witch?
So I was raised in a household where my mother was very evangelical Christian, and my father was a hard-edged biker. So they were an unlikely couple, and it was an unlikely household for a witch to be raised in. But here I am. And I remember kind of this profound dissatisfaction with the Christian religion that I was being raised in, so very evangelical, born-again Christian, and going to a school that really indoctrinated the children very early, and just having this sense that an external male deity that was very judgmental and vengeful just wasn't my God. So it started with that, and then it became, well, how much can I get away with? And I started, studying angels first, because angels were okay. Angels were in the Bible, so that was fine. And then I started studying fairies, and then, well, maybe I can go into this store, and maybe I can buy this book or these tarot cards. So it was this very slow process throughout my childhood. And then yoga became really my gateway to the mystical, and that happened during my early teenage years. I was introduced to yoga, or I started teaching yoga very early too. And then there was this sense that the body was divine in yoga, and I thought, oh, that's it, right? So God and Goddess can be inside of us, and we don't really need to believe that the divinity is solely external and solely male. And so that was a big epiphany for me. And so there was a lot of self-study that went on, and my coming out as a witch didn't really happen until I was 25, after the birth of my first son. And the catalyst for that was really this sense of awe for this baby that I had birthed, and, this kind of dissatisfaction with hiding what I believe to be a very important part of myself, and also being within a relatively supportive community. So I felt safe enough to come out and say, I've been casting spells for more than 10 years. I believed I've been a witch since I was a little girl, and I didn't face a whole lot of rejection or animosity in my community. And after that, I did seek out spiritual mentorship, and I did fall prey to these kind of spiritual oppressors that were very into sexual magic, but not in a very equal, balanced way. It was kind of very predatory behavior. And so I got out early before it went really bad, but it was a big learning experience for me. And so, when I say be strong enough to stand in your own magic before you seek out spiritual mentorship, I really mean that. I think that go ahead.
I'm really glad you bring this up, because that is one of the new age problems that we're facing, is that people learn a little bit and use it to exploit and manipulate rather than do good and, like you say, heal the planet or be supportive of nature. And it's huge. It's rampant. How can a person tell when they're getting hooked up with something like that?
I think that there are, in my experience, there were a lot of red flags, and the biggest one was being told that, this is the only way. There is one way to do this, and this is the only way to do it. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong. So whenever I hear that in relation to spirituality, yoga included, my hackles get up, because I know that that's not true. I know that the depth of human experience is so vast that there is no one way to be a spiritual person, and any spiritual path will ebb and flow even within a single context like witchcraft. So
it's an interesting balance, isn't it? Because in one sense, you don't want it to be dogmatic. And I call it peeing on the lodge pole in shamanism, when, this color has to go in this direction or you're not doing it right. When all roads with the right intention lead back to spirit. But on the other hand, if you go off half-cocked and don't follow the tried and true principles, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble too. Can you speak to that balance?
Yeah, that's it. That's why having such a strong personal practice is important, I believe, in witchcraft, is because you figure it out for yourself. And my way of casting, say, a manifestation spell won't look exactly like anybody else's, even somebody that's trained with me. It doesn't look the same. And if I were to cast a spell that's very meaningful and powerful for somebody else, it won't work as well for me. And so I think that the key to spiritual mentorship, effective spiritual mentorship, is to really teach core principles, but give the freedom to the student to be able to figure out what works for him or her and what doesn't. And even if that's something that really goes against what you as the spiritual mentor see as a core principle, then maybe that needs to be re-examined. So there's always this re-examination of indoctrinated beliefs, even ones that we really believe are ours and authentic.
And does that have to do with genetics? I know in shamanism, when I'm training my people, I train them very strongly in the tried and true principles that have been around for 50,000 years. But within that, each person has to develop their own practice. And I've come to wonder, is it due to their genetics, due to their history, due to their blood? What's going on there?
That's interesting. That's something I haven't really thought of before. I love working with witches from different cultures. So most of my craft comes from like British and Celtic traditions, and I love working with witches that come from like African traditions and traditions that I'm not familiar with at all. And I can see how they're different and they're valuable and how we can learn from each other. So I don't know. That's an interesting point. I've never thought about the influence of genetics before.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because we're coming to a time when we're all kind of like a big mixing pot. And how do we individualize and use ourselves to the best advantage within that magically?
Yes. I think that, that's when we kind of get into this idea of soul and soul work and soul purpose. So, going beyond this body that we've been given in this life and really seeking out what our sacred work is, and then what is the role of magic in our sacred work.
Mm-hmm. Is there something? Is it something a person's born to, or do we all have the capacity to become witches?
I believe we all have the certainly the physical and mental capacity to become witches. I do think that there are a lot of witches that are being born today at this very pivotal kind of do or die time this is their task. They are tasked to teach as many students as possible and listen to other witches that are, calling out for a mentor or for sisterhood or for whatever community they're looking for. So I think it can be both. I think that there really are purposed witches right now, that this is why they were born, and then I think there's others that can just come to the craft as they need to.
Can both genders be witches?
Absolutely. Yeah, like you were saying in the beginning in the introduction, magic is masculine and feminine, witchcraft is masculine and feminine, and gender has very little to do with it. So these energies of maiden, mother, crone, hunter, father, sage, they really ebb and flow within all of us, and some people do have stronger feminine energy or stronger masculine energy, and sometimes that has to do with gender, and sometimes it doesn't. So it's more about the masculine and feminine, much more about the masculine and feminine than it could ever be about gender.
It seems to work very interestingly in a group setting. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, in a group setting, so this was kind of my introduction into coven craft, which was when I was in my mid-20s, and it was a little bit, like I said, a manipulative situation. But I learned a lot, though, about the mechanics of coven craft and how much stronger the magic can be in certain circumstances. So it depends on what the spell is. But in certain circumstances, for instance, like working the magic for global healing or something that really does speak to the community and speak to everyone's heart. The spell, when you try to balance the masculine and feminine, so we try to kind of put more feminine energy in between more masculine energy. And then have everybody have this laser focused intention. So if it's global healing, having everybody really picture, clean water and clean air or whatever the spell calls for. And then the energy really, really is amplified. And you do have this physical circle of people that are able to kind of contain the energy versus a solitary practitioner who just casts a circle and maintains the energy that way, which is powerful also. But for certain spells, a community can make it so much stronger.
We're about at the end of this segment, but it sounds to me like the key here is intention, focus, and cooperation. Can a coven work against itself will be a question we'll pick up on the other side of this short pause. Danielle and I will return to our discussion, so don't go away. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Don't miss the other fine shows and hosts on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, your resource for creative solutions in a changing world, thescienceofmagic.net. Please email me at info@thescienceofmagic.net with any topics or guests you'd like to hear from. You're not the only one interested. Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Danielle Dulsky, author of Woman Most Wild. Her website, DanielleDulsky.com. Danielle, we were getting into some interesting concepts about working in groups, and you made some very nice points. One is intention and envision. And so when you're working in a group, that has to have common intent and clear intent for the magic to really be set free. Is that accurate? And if so, how do you make sure that that's going on?
Right. So yes, that's absolutely correct. The intention in group spell work has to be as clearly designated and defined in the beginning as possible. And there does need to be a space holder for the spell who can continually reaffirm that you're coming back to the intention, especially if it's a longer spell where the vision is really the core part of it. So that's where we get into this idea of non-hierarchical magic, because in certain covens there is this idea of leader and hierarchy, and I respect that. So I'm not saying that any tradition that has that is bad or doing harm to witchcraft at all. But in my work, what I found is bridging just a traditional women's circle with a coven. And what I mean by that is women come together in my work. They come together and they just kind of place the magic alongside the mundane. So meaning they know they're going to be casting a spell, 20 minutes or so into the circle, but in the beginning they're just kind of sharing these mundane experiences like, taking the kids to the doctor or whatever. And so what that does is it establishes this heart-centered communication. So you had brought up before the break about can the coven work against itself? And the answer is absolutely the coven can work against itself. But when you bridge just circle mundane sharing with coven and magic, you get this heart-centered energy that is very beautiful, and it's similar to Reiki for the energy healers. It's this very empathic kind of gratitude-based energy that comes from the heart rather than the lower chakras, like the belly chakra, for instance, the solar plexus, which is more ego-centered. And so, having the intention is important, but also sourcing the energy physically from the heart keeps the energy vibrating kind of at the same frequency around the circle.
Boy, heart is such an important thing, isn't it? Because
Yes.
Isn't that where the masculine energy from above and the feminine energy from below blend to create the balanced power?
Yes, absolutely. You have the spirit Shiva energy descending from the crown, and then the Shakti feminine energy rising from the root, and then they meet at heart center, and that's when that magical tantric click happens. And so it floods down the arms into the hands, and that's where in circle we connect. When I lead circles, we don't touch each other because I find that breaks the energetic connection. So we just kind of have our palms kind of hovering above and below one another's, and the energy is so strong in a circle where the energy is coming from the heart in that way.
So another thing that you brought up that I would like to touch into, that's again common with shamanism and witchcraft, apparently, from what you're saying, is envisioning. So in my practice, you cannot create a thing unless you can imagine it. The imagining of it creates the matrix around which, at the quantum level, around which the thing starts to manifest. Is it the same with witchcraft, and would you describe that for us?
Yes, I believe it is, particularly with manifestation magic. So in my book, I talk about how you can kind of distinguish between manifestation magic and protection magic and also healing magic. But especially in manifestation magic, it is all about being able to visualize this thing. So I talk about having your passion about what you're trying to manifest be so strong that it seems like a memory of the future, that you feel like you've been there before and you can feel it in your cells. And yes, it does absolutely begin there. With healing magic in my practice, I find that there is this level of trust that it's going to go where it needs to go. And so the visual in my healing magic sometimes is less important than it would be in a manifestation spell, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And which brings up another interesting point. Where do you stand on permission? I mean, if somebody's sick, do you just assume that they want your healing? Or are you, where do you go with that?
Yeah, I always teach my students to get permission. Because it is, even though in Reiki the philosophy can be a little bit, I don't want to say fluffy, but it can be like, it's just trust, it's going to go where it needs to go. But it is a psychic connection that you're establishing when you're doing any kind of energetic healing. So I do believe that permission is absolutely required. Now, I was taught that I didn't need permission from my kids. So I stand by that rule in my own practice, but I always tell everyone else that I work with that they need permission.
Well, with children, it's interesting, isn't it? Do you get permission from the children's parents until they're a particular age?
Well, I was speaking about my kids.
Right, I know. I was just wondering.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I feel like, my older son, he's 11, and he just kind of knows that he's actually attuned to Reiki. I attuned him a few years ago. So he's very open to it and knows what goes on. But I expect that in a few years I'll need to start asking for permission from him.
Yeah. Being a mom is always a delicate dance, isn't it?
It really is.
When did the word witch get such a bad rap?
Yeah, well, some people say that it was the King James version of the Bible, that King James had a kind of resident witch that lived in his castle or wherever it was that he lived, and that the witch advised him to go to battle or told him not to go to battle, and he should have. I forget what it was, but the witch gave him bad advice, and he got very upset with his witch, and he put that verse in the Bible, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," that was the very new kind of medieval introduction by King James, and that was really the verse that was used as the foundation for the Hammer of Witches, which was then the basis for all of the witch hunts, which then became the foundation for the witch being, the evil, seductress or old crone or whatever that lives in the woods and is out to get children. So it was, it was this very kind of clear progression from the witch being deemed as the evil, kind of unpredictable woman in the Bible, and then that being used for instruments of prosecution in all forms.
Yeah, and that was a scary time for sure. Now, is witchcraft used for divination, like to tell the future? And if so, how?
Yes, I believe divination is a core part of witchcraft. I think that there are witches that use it more in their practice than others. I use it a lot in my personal practice. And I also talk about this idea of wild rhythm in my book, and how the wheel of the year is really important for different types of magic and ritual. And so for me, divination is strongest during crone time, during crone season, which is late autumn and winter. So kind of like that dark moving into the void time. That's when I feel the upper chakras are very attuned, kind of more attuned than they would be the rest of the year. So like right now, moving from spring to summer in the northern hemisphere anyway, a lot of the energy is really consumed by birth and manifestation and fruition out in nature. And so there isn't that really necessary void that some practitioners require in order to clearly divine the future.
But you can step into those seasons any time of the year, can't you, by intent?
Yes, absolutely, you can. I think that would be something that's kind of for more advanced practitioners, but yeah, absolutely, you can attune to the different energies of the year, no matter where you are. So northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, it doesn't really matter, as long as you can be able to sense those different energies of the seasons, which really live in the body in a very specific way. They live in the chakral system. So that's where that kind of bridge is between what's really happening in nature and then what you can manifest psychically.
So again, like shamanism, witchcraft is not bound by time and space.
No, right. Not at all. And like Reiki and energy healing, you can send it to the past and the future, past lives. We really believe that time is cyclical, or most witches believe that time is cyclical, and that's the feminine way. So masculine time is linear and feminine time is cyclical, and that's really a core part of our magic.
It's a core part of the way our bodies work too, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And the way we're physically made too, like our cells are circles and our bones spiral.
What I find really fascinating is that this earth-based, seasonal-based practice is common to all magical practices. Why do you suppose that is?
Because we are of the earth. And so, as much as a lot of systematized world religions have tried to divorce us from the earth and from our bodies, we remain creatures of the earth. And so, so this belief in magic and using your will to move energy requires this faith in the body, in the heavy body. And you can't just be all upper chakra, crown chakra, and believing that God is external if you're going to work magic.
So do we get the power from the earth, or do we empower the earth?
I think both. I think that I really believe in this idea of the Gaia hypothesis, or most of it anyway. I believe that we are just kind of small cells in her, so Gaia being the entire universe, not just the earth, all of the cosmos, that we are just tiny cells in this one gigantic organism. And so, she affects us and we affect her, and it's very much a two-way relationship.
Sounds very synergistic.
Yes, absolutely.
When do you think we stepped out of that? I mean, if that was our birthright, when did we lose it?
Well, I don't know. I think that industry and capitalism and economy have had a lot to do with it. However, I do love social media and this kind of merging of communications, and I think that that's a very feminine thing, actually. I think Facebook is a very feminine magic. But yeah, when did we lose that? I'm not sure, but it's been a long time. There is this interesting theory that I heard that around 1500 BC, all over the world, these more egalitarian, not necessarily matriarchal, but these more egalitarian civilizations all started to kind of crumble. And that was largely because of various natural disasters. And so the human brain, and I don't know where this theory comes from. I know that I read it in this book called Mysteries of the Dark Moon. But the human brain started to shift from being very bicameral, so thinking with the right and left brain, the masculine and feminine in equal parts, more to being just left brain, because people had
We're going to have to continue with this. It's time for another break. Danielle and I will be back shortly, so don't leave us now. This is The Science of Magic, your resource to altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric, working to create common ground for the betterment of our world. Join our email family to receive our topic-driven episode collections at thescienceofmagic.net.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A Soul Balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net. Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. What's up in your world? Email me at the info@thescienceofmagic.net and suggest a topic or a guest that's on your mind. You're probably not the only one interested. Our guest this hour is Danielle Dulsky, author of Woman Most Wild. Her website, danielledulsky.com. Danielle, we talked about how magic and witchcraft work with the seasons. How about the ages? Is that factored in?
You mean the age of the practitioner?
No, I'm sorry. Oh. Like the ages of the horoscope. You're moving into the age of Aquarius right now, which is moving us to a more unity time, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I'm not as familiar with this idea of the ages as they relate to astrology, but I do believe that we are like clearly moving into, like I called it before, this do or die time, but this time when we are really being called to affirm our spiritual autonomy, and whether that means as a witch or in any other way, that it's very important to really examine your own beliefs and figure out, what your purpose is in the world, and then to enact that in as many ways as possible. So not just, sacred work, but also your prayer and your ritual and all of that kind of upper chakra spiritual practice is just as important as anything that you would do in your more day-to-day life.
You speak of 3 keys to liberating the witch within. What are they?
Mm-hmm. So there's 3 keys. The first key is wild rhythm. So that was a lot of what I talked about with the seasons and being able to work with these spiritual cycles. So being able to trace when you have these peaks where you're really excited about your craft and it's kind of all you want to do to the point of obsession, and then you have these lows where you really don't want to do any of it, and that's fine. So it isn't something that you need to really throw yourself into 24/7, that there are these peaks and valleys. So that, along with the way the seasons live in the body and in the chakral system, that's wild rhythm. And then the second key is wild ritual, and wild ritual is magic. So, we talked about those different types of spells, but also the way you mark transitions and the way you make these various transitions in your life important. And then finally, Wild Circle. And Wild Circle is coming together with like-minded seekers and just being able to maybe only talk about your magic and talk about your craft and not necessarily even work your magic together. But if you do, like I said before, it is that much more powerful depending on what sort of spells you're working. So those are the 3 keys: wild rhythm, wild ritual, and wild circle.
Danielle, what do you see as the major obstacle to reclaiming feminine magic at this time?
Oh, well, that's a hard question. The major obstacle, I think it's fear. I think that women especially have this deep soul wound that's left over from the witch hunts, and there is this real fear around calling yourself a witch. And, calling yourself a wild woman is kind of the same thing, but it feels safer. It feels safer. So I know that a lot of women that I work with, they still fear the word witch, but they'll do everything else. They'll do everything that makes them a witch, but they won't call themselves a witch, and that's okay.
It's interesting time, isn't it?
Yeah,
just interesting times. And what do you see as the most important thing about embracing witchcraft at this time in history?
Mm-hmm. I think it's this level of activism to witchcraft, and that's where the idea of feminine magic comes in. Like, we need to work our magic in order to heal and protect the earth and her creatures, and all of the oppressed populations in humanity. So we really need to harvest our own power for healing and protection of others. So it isn't just this selfish craft.
How much do you think that the systems at large have to do with manipulating our magic by driving our belief systems?
Yeah, this is something that I have a dear friend that really believes that there are, kind of governmental energies out there that are working against us, that there's like these, underlying missions and strategies for suppressing witches, and I haven't encountered that, so I can't really speak to it, but I certainly wouldn't discount the possibility.
Yeah, no, I'm talking more about the populace at large, because we've established that we all have a certain latent ability to manifest, to work magic. But if we do that through our belief systems, but if our belief systems were being controlled, then we aren't working magic for us, we're working it for the system. How prevalent do you think that is?
Oh, right, absolutely. That's really systematized religion. So that's why we were talking about spiritual predatory behavior. I think, in any tradition, pagan or otherwise, the most important thing is to continually examine your own personal beliefs and figure out which ones are yours and which ones have been indoctrinated and which ones need to be dismantled because of that.
That's huge, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
We've mentioned the earth-based nature of witchcraft. I understand it also works with lunar and solar cycles. Would you speak to this?
Yeah, so The lunar cycle is very integral to witchcraft, and this idea of working manifestation magic during the waxing moon, and then working your kind of purge or your banishing during the waning moon, and then no magic during the void is kind of one of those things that we were talking about, the collective unconscious memories and what women just sort of need to just sort of seem to know without ever having done it before. And that's one of them. This notion of the lunar cycle is as really living in us and affecting all of the waters and energies in our body is key. And then the solar cycle, working with the seasons and seeing how your psyche fluctuates throughout the year, throughout the wheel of the year as it turns is also very important.
What are the mechanics behind the practice? What makes it work?
How do you mean? The magic?
Yes, the science behind the magic.
The science behind the magic. So we talked about intention. I feel like intention is really critical. But then the other piece that's kind of less talked about is this idea of autonomy and will. So you not only have to have this very clear intention, you have to believe that you have the right to do this. You have to believe that, you have the right to direct this energy. And so there is kind of this level of self-confidence that's required. And so, the witch also has to have that.
What all can witchcraft accomplish?
So witchcraft can accomplish a lot. I think that it's all about these different levels. So, the witch can heal herself. She can work her magic for herself, but then it goes beyond that. She can also heal and work her magic for her inner circle, family, friends, children, local community. She can also work her magic for the earth. She can also work her magic for the entire cosmos. So, when we talk about, self-confidence and this belief that you have this internal divinity and birthright to be able to do this, it's like, that birthright really gives you the right to work your magic on, to the cosmic infinite. It's limitless.
And yet we're taught systematically that we're pretty much powerless. How can you get those two to add up?
Yeah, well, that's one of those things that you have to dismantle, one of those beliefs that you don't have the right to do this, or that it somehow makes you evil, or, however you were raised. Like, the way I was raised, it was like, well, you're going to hell, so might as well just give up now. But yeah, you really have to believe that you have the right to do it, and that it isn't external, that it can be sourced from you.
Is witchcraft a religion?
It is not. The witchcraft in itself is just a practice. So or a craft, just like the word says, it's just a craft or a practice. So you don't need to subscribe to any religion in order to be a witch.
What do you see as the future for witchcraft? Where is it going?
Yeah, I think that it will be absolutely instrumental in healing the earth and pushing us in a positive social direction. I think that, the witches are rising right now, and it is a beautiful thing, and that they are realizing, and collectively, so not that they didn't realize it before, but collectively there's this realization that we are witch activists. We are working our magic for something bigger than ourselves, and that we are needed right now. We are necessary.
What do you think, what would be your advice? We're about out of time, but what would be your advice for someone really feeling that they align with this and wanting to come out as a witch? What would be their first step? What advice do you have for them?
Yes, I think that, look back into your childhood moments where you really felt like you were the most you. And if a lot of those were spent in nature and, that have this sense of magic in the world, that yes, absolutely. Come out as a witch when you're ready and learn to stand on your own 2 feet as a witch.
And where do you find the material you need to see if that lines up with you?
I think that there's a lot of resources out there. I think that, before you seek out any specific single spiritual mentor or even a coven, unless you have references for that coven or that spiritual mentor, to read as much as you can. There's a lot of books out there, mine included, that are really great introductions.
You
and
know,
not...
time flies, Danielle, and we're out of it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Gwilda.
Our guest this hour has been Danielle Dulsky, author of Woman Most Wild, her website, danielledulsky.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Join our email family to be the first to receive our thought-provoking, topic-driven episode collections at thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you embrace the magic within.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation.